Now, I'd like to introduce our presenter tonight. It's my pleasure to welcome and introduce Brian Johnson as tonight's presenter. Here he is, Muskegon native and longtime MCNC member. Brian has long been employed as a biologist, working in North and Central America. Brian's also had a side career in bird studies and has been banding birds since 1987. Tonight he'll provide an overview of local birds and banding projects in Michigan, including his work with the beautiful saw-whet owl, which Brian has been banding for the past few years in Muskegon County. So welcome and thank you, Brian.
Go through them pretty quickly. The slides provide a lot of detail. I spent a lot of time working on them, but if we went through them all, we'd be here till tomorrow, and we don't want that. So it's going to be fairly superficial. We'll just kind of focus on the birds. Feel free to call out some of the birds you see. Don't worry if you're wrong. Most of these are pretty easy, though, but it'll be less speaking I have to do if you just name them yourselves. But yeah, we'll get going then. So we'll start with Muskegon County. It's kind of like the project area, though I do kind of get into Grand Haven a little bit. As you can see from the map, there's just a lot of public lands in Muskegon County. Not all of it's managed in the best manner, but at least we have lands and we're still acquiring lands, and that's a very positive thing. My favorite areas are the Muskegon State Game Area. Grab my pointer. You know, this big area there, that's just a massive habitat, really, really good stuff. But we're loaded with parks along the shore. So we're, over the course of a year, seeing a lot of migrants along the Lake Michigan leading line, and we provide a lot of habitat in the smaller parks, but particularly the National Forest and Muskegon State Game Area. So as a little bit of background, and boy, this slide took forever. This slide took longer than any other slide. 11,000 birds in the world, I think, of which 1,026 can occur in the United States, excluding Hawaii, of which a good birder should be able to see about 764 if they're willing to put some gas in the tank, drive around. Beyond that, you're really kind of listing. Michigan, according to the Michigan Bird Records Committee, we're at 460 species pretty much. In Muskegon County, I've recorded 331, or that's how many, I have not seen that many, but that's how many we pretty much stand on. Again, you can kind of fine tune those figures, you know, what's reliable, what's not.
So the folks at home can see the slides, can you stand right
Yep,
up?
no problem.
That'd be great, thanks a lot.
And can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, I'll try to keep the noise up. Yep.
He's not mic'd, so.
Okay, I'll just shout, and we'll start picking this up here a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much that. So eBird is a fairly good way, albeit crude, of documenting what's in the county. It's superficial. eBird has its strengths, it has its weaknesses. eBird works great in a broad sense. When it comes to specifics or fine tuning, eBird really is, it can fall short. And in fact, this is the one slide I did not update. I just didn't feel like going into eBird and see what's been reported. But if anybody does want to just compile a list of the various sites from eBird, send it to me. I'm kind of curious. At least through 2018, this is where we stood for our bird totals. Now, personally, I got my fingers in a lot of pies, and some of the things are fairly superficial. The banding projects I'm particularly interested in. My focus is how bird monitoring can translate into good local habitat or good management of local habitat. So banding projects, monitoring projects, if they have some type of management focus, great. And again, from a superficial stance, a lot of people are just interested in arrival dates of birds. We got them, but that's superficial. We need to know a little bit more about the birds rather than simply arrival dates. When they show up, when they peak, when they leave, but whether they breed, how many birds we got, are they doing good, what's the various status of these birds in the county. So, but I am a big fan of phenology, the seasonal chronology of the birds. And I kind of measure every day on what we should be getting. Today is the 19th, and I think I just made the comment, I haven't seen any chipmunks yet, a groundhog. But some of the birds are doing things. The March 4th, red-winged drive on average, the cardinals, titmice, larks are singing, but I haven't heard the house finch or the mourning doves yet. The local equinox is March 17 there. Now, official spring is like March 19th, but it's a little bit different here. In fact, there's quite a bit of variation in the fall equinox. It's not till September 25th. And again, from a climate change perspective, you can see that temperatures and precipitation is rising. Whether it's affecting the birds, it could be locally, but certainly the birds are, we're in a temperate zone, so certainly the birds are going to be far more influenced by local factors. In other words, how the local habitat is managed and disturbed. One of the first projects that really kind of took off, an independent project, was Larry Waukesha's banding project. Some of us old-timers know him. He banded near Pioneer Park for years, traveled all over the world. But he got a lot of birds and did a lot of independent projects with prairie warbler and yellow rail. I think he caught one in his yard. All right, as far as the birds, any guesses? 2 species here. Yep, you can just say it.
Is the one on the left of Connecticut?
You got it. Yep, that's a Connecticut. The other 3 are mourning warblers. Male, young female, young male. Though the young male and the female look pretty similar. Whoops. And one of my particular interests is grassland birds. Now, I was doing grassland bird work up in the UP and particularly focusing on LeConte sparrows. I kind of brought that focus down to the wastewater, and the big interest there were grasshopper sparrows. Again, take a guess on the birds. It's my money bird. And then the grasshopper, it's new money bird, and Henslow sparrows. And like I said, most of them will be relatively easy, but you throw a juvenile Savannah sparrow in there and it gets a little bit trickier. That's where I banded at the wastewater, did a lot of coverage. It was crazy. Grasshopper sparrows, the birders who were out there between 2008 and 2012 saw me running all over those fields, catching grasshopper sparrows. I caught, 124 in 2009. Yeah, I put these slides together and I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the numbers. Dixiesills were another one that I just focused on. They were interesting, supposedly a nomadic bird, though I found that they had pretty good site fidelity. They came back to the same territories every year. And then you had a lot of incidental captures. Any guesses? Now the middle one's easy, indigo bunting, but Vesper, indigo, brown thrasher, Baltimore oriole, female Baltimore oriole, and orchard oriole. Another volunteer project which most of you people have really helped with is the Christmas bird count at the wastewater. The Muskegon Christmas bird count goes back to the about 1930, operated continuously since the 45. The wastewater only goes back to 2000. We average 54 species up there on that count. We kind of hit the wastewater, some of the surrounding areas, and then the state game area. Shrike, ruffed grouse, bald eagle. So yeah, thanks to the 58 people that have really helped out. Rick, yeah, thanks a lot for your coverage again this year. Yeah, you're now in second place. But Feller, who actually started the count before I came on board, he doesn't get out very much. But yeah, Charlie, he's really kind of picked up the mantle. Brown creeper, dark-eyed junco, downy, hairy. So 23 counts. We got 116 total birds on that thing so far. Every year it's kind of fun. I really like it. My area is the state game area. I like to kind of put about 8-9 miles of hiking on it. It's fun. It gets me outside, and yeah, it's quite a few birds. Oh, I should point out that previous one. Longspur, bunting. As far as unusual species, get a lot of them. Who's to say what's the best? But yeah, some good ones out there. As far as the winter finches, pine siskin, redpoll, we got evening grosbeaks for the first time this year. Caught one of them. It was so drunk on berries it's going to fly away, so I just caught it and banded it. Albino red-tailed hawk. Let me go back to that previous slide. And the most common species, again, Canada geese, herring gull, mallard, European starling, you know, the usual suspects. I just finished the latest Great Backyard Bird Count. Been doing those forever, mostly in Grand Rapids, but once I relocated to Muskegon, about 2011, I started doing them here, and it's just a good way to just kind of, you know, catch up on things, arrange a slide presentation, watch a few birds in the backyard. And it's really interesting, the things that you do see. Censusing from your backyard only 2 days in winter doesn't give you a whole lot of information, but over time, you definitely see patterns emerge. I had a sapsucker a few years ago, but pileatids, purple finch, and then a lot of various common birds. But that leads me to the banding that I've been doing in the backyard. It's nice to monitor the birds, but if you can really get bands on them, you're breaking it down beyond a species or even a population level. You're marking each bird as an individual. So the winter banding that I do is strictly in the backyard. And I band as I can, and also as weather permits. It's easy banding. I look out the window, I get a bird, I band it. But if I'm not home, well, I can't do anything. If it's snowing too hard, too cold, can't do anything about it. If I got cats roaming the neighborhood, can't do anything about it. But I'm drawing some pretty good information. The main focus here is on the health of the birds. Everything from avian flu to salmonella to just starvation. Learned quite a bit regarding, you know, good foods, bad foods, stuff like that. I only feed my birds black oil sunflower. Millet, nah, it's not very good for the birds. Thistle, I kind of wonder about. So I do continue into the spring a little bit. Oop. Let me.
You didn't talk about your technique.
Yeah, the banding. I run a single net. It's a 6-meter net, and I check the net when a bird gets into the net, and I throw a band on it, take a few measurements, wing, tail, weight, particularly fitness correlates, and yeah, let them go. There's not a whole lot to the banding. Again, the benefit is in mass amounts of data. You just keep at it. So hang on. Let me fix this.
What kind of net do you use for the
My net actually came from Chip Frankie, and I use a 61 millimeter net for the owls, but for the passerines, it's just a 31 millimeter net, and a 30 millimeter net. And it fits in the backyard, holds the birds quite well. Actually, it's a 24 millimeter net, now that I think about it. But yeah, I don't use it very often. Now for the grasshopper sparrows, that finer mesh just really paid off, but for the backyard, it's fine. I get so many recaps from day to day that I don't mind missing them. I just want to sample as I can, and really, I'm just really interested in the health. And we do take some feather and blood samples on that. I'm permitted to do that. So yeah, there is some of the species. Cooper's, I'm sorry, this is a Cooper's Sharpie, and I do have Merlins breeding in the yard, but they breed here in Grand Haven as well. As far as other raptors, golden eagle, rough-legged turkey, and red-tailed hawk. And then, like I said, I really kind of like to look at the fitness correlates, how fat these birds are, how healthy they are. And it's kind of funny because we're at a time of the year where the birds are really lean right now. They're just not really eating a lot of food. They're really susceptible to disease. In another few weeks, they'll start molting. That'll put some stress on them. But boy, in April, on average, these birds get really, really fat. And so, 30-gram juncos. Also in the winter, though, when I can, I like to monitor the Lake Michigan flight. So I'll set up at Hoffmaster or Muskegon State Park, Duck Lake State Park, and just watch the birds flying by. I've been doing that forever. Increasingly, though, I'm kind of setting back on the dunes and looking at the passerines that are migrating. I still do it, but not with as much emphasis as I did between 9 and 16. Care to guess on the scoters? Go ahead. You got it. Yep. So female black and female surf scoter and other ducks, as long as we're talking about ducks. So the cackling goose is a nice contrast between the Canada goose. So male-female pintails, and then the male and female pairs of blue-winged teal and northern shoveler. So lots of birds, more ducks. All right, care to guess on these? Yep, go ahead. You can just shout it out. Not quite. The bufflehead is very closely related to goldeneye, though. It's, yeah, very closely related. In fact, all these birds are basically sea ducks. And specifically, the male winter plumage long-tailed duck, female long-tailed duck above that, and this scoter-like thing, but with a really small bill, harlequin duck. So, again, I keep track of the passage, because if I'm not going to spend a lot of time out there, get out there when the birds are kind of moving. Probably the biggest interest are the loons right now. Coast or whatever is really kind of monitoring the birds for botulism. Loon populations still keep on dropping. So that's one thing I really like watching is common loons or loons. And it's interesting to see the ratio of red-throated and common loon kind of change. It used to be like one red throat for every commons. Now it's like 1 to 5. So red-breasted merganser, and on the bottom, the middle one's a common merganser. And gulls. I love gulls. Wastewater is good. Lake watch is good. And gulls are easy. They're close. They're simple. They play. This big billed sucker, that's a great blackback gull. Lesser blackback gull. This one is a weird one, and it kind of shows you how gulls, can really kind of mess with your mind. This is a hybrid herring greater blackback gull. And this one, young blackback gull. It's just that bill is just so massive on this. More ducks. Gadwall, American widgeon, male-female ring-necked, and the male-female redheads. I get my best duck counts at Dune Harbor Park, or for these bay ducks, at Dune Harbor Park and at Black Lake Park. This group doesn't really migrate along Lake Michigan in good numbers. The sea ducks do, and some of the dabblers do. But yeah, not so much the bay ducks. There's better ways of counting those. Back to gulls again. We'll start with the easy one, ring-billed. And then, again, just photograph all the gulls you see. You can learn them. There's so many plumages that a good personal photo collection is going to tell you more than a guide in a book. So, yeah, just nothing more than a young herring gull and young Ison gull and an adult glaucus gull. Bonaparte's gulls. Forster's tern. I had to think about that tern, but yeah, it's a Forster's tern. And then, of course, the Caspian tern. When doing the lake watch, it's a little bit tough to tell the scoters apart. The only thing you really have to go on is the wing pattern on the birds. Yeah, up close, yeah, greater scalp. I meant to say scalp. Lesser scalp, the other head shape, even the sheen of the head works, but really in the field, when you're looking at them from the dune, it's the amount of white on the wing. All right, for the day job, one of the things I do is do environmental assessments for wind farm locations, and they're popping up everywhere. It's slowing down. Right now, the emphasis is on solar. But yeah, there lots of work there. And that's particularly of interest, again, for eagles and loons. If you're going to put up a wind farm, you do need permits for those. Though most of the controversy really stems from bats. The turbines aren't bad on birds, but boy, do they slice and dice bats. And then our parrots, we could call them. So the falcons are more closely related to parrots than they are to the rest of the raptors. So the kestrel is easy. This is a young male kestrel, a young peregrine falcon, and you know what the other one is? Mm-hmm. You got it, yeah. All these slides that I've taken are in Michigan. Almost all of them are from Muskegon, but unfortunately not that one. That was at wind farm up in the Upper Peninsula. Had that myself, so it's pretty good. So weather drives migration. We could go on and on about that. It's a whole topic in itself. But if you look at the weather, you know when the birds are going to be coming. So we got a kind of a fall pattern with just a huge movement through the dunes on that weather front. And in the fall, it's kind of like the opposite. These birds are just riding that high pressure system south. We looked at that with a little bit more detail on a project here that I kind of did on the area, another side project. First, does anybody dare to tackle these flycatchers? The most common one, least flycatcher. And that's an alder flycatcher, definite. I photographed it up in the UP. Others are from Muskegon. So yellow-bellied, willow, alder. More flycatchers, but on the hummingbirds. So a little bit easier ones. This western kingbird had it at the wastewater. So it's one of the nice things about the wastewater. Provides some good birds. But kingbird, gray crest, olive-sided flycatcher, and phoebe. So that project I was talking about took place at several parks extending from Duncan Woods to Duck Lake State Park. It was a big study. I've talked about it before. It involved University of Delaware, Michigan State University, University of Scranton, and the University of Minnesota. Everybody looking at different things. We had audio detectors out, we had banding stations, we were surveying, we were taking insect samples, and then vegetation samples. It was just a full court press. Personally, I did the point counts on this. I was kind of done with banding. I needed a break from banding, so I did the point counts. Great project, a lot of fun. One of my favorite projects. All right. We were really kind of focusing on neotropical migrants, and particularly the benefits of the dunes to these May passage birds, among which were our thrushes. So again, anybody want to take a stab at the thrushes? Yep, definitely we got the wood there. That's the easy one. Yep, Veery. This one. Yep, Swainson's. Yep, and then that kind of bad photos, the gray cheek thrush. Yeah, I am a fan of taxonomy. And sometimes when it's done right, it works really, really well. And the taxonomic arrangement of thrush definitely allows you to learn them a little bit better. Veery's at the forefront. It resembles gray cheek the most, which kind of grades into Swainson's, which then can resemble hermit, and then the outlier is wood thrush. Muskegon State Park was our big focus. We really kind of hit that one hard there. There were a lot of problems with that study, a lot of assumptions that were not met with that study. But one of the things where we fell short is just how bad the prevailing winds impacted the birds. Birds don't like winds. They're often in the dunes, kind of hiding from the winds, and we can get good fallouts during a rainy weather after a good front, but it doesn't mean that the dunes are really optimal for the birds, like that screech owl there. Rick can remember, and Greg can remember the migration count. It went defunct in 2016, though people like Rick and myself kind of carry it on in spirit. Again, it's like the Christmas bird count. You're out there for one day, but again, you get a lot of information, both for the scope of coverage, you got a lot of birders, and the number of birds seen, and the fact that it's actually set on one of your peak days, great. Now, we don't need to continue it as such because it's really been superseded by the eBird Big Day or whatever it is. I do it, but I forget what it's called. So, red-shouldered hawk and broad-winged hawk. Catbird, thrasher. All right, what's this one? Sedge wren. Yeah, that was kind of a money bird, both in that project up in the UP with the LeConte sparrows, and we're catching a few of them at the wastewater. Now, these birds really are fairly nomadic. Some of the more spring migrants, except for the mockingbird. Though I always get those late in May. But yeah, black-billed cuckoo, yellow-billed cuckoo. It's a young yellow-billed cuckoo, barn and rough-winged swallow. So, yeah, thanks to all who've helped with that. 46 birders helped with that. Like I said, it's now part of the eBird Big Day, and that even gets more people. But stuff's still on file. Oh, the bottom bird. All right, what's that one? Yep. Lots of warblers. I just wanted to see how many I could jam in a slide. Legs, yep, least. Also yellow legs, but it's a lot bigger. Pectoral, especially the females. Pectorals have pretty significant reverse sexual dimorphism. The females are large. Males not much larger than even a semi-pomaded sandpiper. They are, but there's a big size difference. And then sanderling. So there's the old banding station at the preserve. Should look familiar to Carol. And I'm not going to go into too much details with the banding, except for we caught a lot of birds. Really put in the time. It was kind of supported by the Muskegon Nature Club, Michigan Audubon, Mears. We got grants from everybody, and we really hit it hard. A lot of the work we did, though, wasn't strictly scientific. We were moving a lot of kids through. We moved a few thousand kids through, so thanks for all the volunteers that have helped with that. Again, we've seen this before, the Swainsons and the Hermit.
How many different colored rings do you have to distinguish the birds?
Rings?
12 bands.
Oh, yeah, each band is uniquely numbered, so you do have to recapture the bird to tell if you got it. Unfortunately, they're not the color bands. Don't do much color banding. So since every number is unique, yeah, sky's the limit. As long as they make bands, I'll keep on banding birds.
Isn't the color band more related to like the piping folders and stuff, so they can
Yeah.
identify easier from distance?
Yeah, any case where you have a stronger likelihood of getting a visual on the bird rather than having to capture it, that's the way, it's the way to go. But some birds just don't work well with, for instance, robins would be a good candidate for a color band. But who's doing studies on robins? On the other hand, downy woodpeckers, they're horrible for color bands. You would never see the color band. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of work that does color banding because there's a lot of, it's labor intensive. You got to band the birds, you got to track the birds. It's almost easier just using radio telemetry on these. All right, so Veery, gray cheek thrush. And some of the stuff that I do take, at least I took it at the preserve, date, time, just basic stats, that sort of stuff you end up sending to the government. So it's all public domain data because they're the ones who provide the bands. Some general size measurements and definitely a lot of the fitness correlates. And then I'm particularly interested in age and sex classes because I like to really kind of build the life tables, and particularly useful are photos. Like I said, I take lots of photos. They really kind of help determine these birds as individuals, and then I also record call notes. It kind of helps me with the callers that I have at home. All right, what's this one? Philadelphia, and then the warbling. They don't really overlap in the fall. And then just showing you how to age birds. This is a young bird, it has retained juvenile feathers. This is an old grosbeak. Its primary coverts are glossy black. And those are the parts of the bird. And by having a certain familiarity with age and sexes, it kind of promotes identification, but also it helps build those life tables too. So the an old male yellow warbler, and this is a young female yellow warbler, very different. Again, even birds that supposedly you can't sex are quite apparent in differentiation. So this is a male orange-crowned warbler, and this is a female orange-crowned warbler. So I quit banding in 2018, may start up again, at least better, and that was a fun one. So kind of stalled at 95 species, 8,000 birds. When we get the habitat back there, and people like Shelley are working really hard on resurrecting the habitat of the preserve, and it'll be a while, but we'll get there. and I'll be banding again. House and winter wren. And one of the reasons I don't band is to see where these birds go. Banding is just not the right tool to determine migration strategies. It's the right tool to see if these birds are capable of migration, how healthy these birds are, whether they're not migrating, whether they are staying in place. In other words, are you recapturing them? But it is kind of funny to see where some of these birds go. Most of them, not very far, no surprise. It's at least the recoveries aren't very far. And I also band nearby. Almost all the birds in my neighborhood are killed by cats, or they fly into windows. The neighbors come up and say, oh, we got another one of your birds, flew into the window or ran it over. It's like, okay, well, thanks. A little bit depressing, but oh well. Now, I entered Al Hook's banding data from Grand Rapids. He banded for like 50 years. And even he did not have a whole lot of wide-ranging recoveries. His most distant one was this American goldfinch in Louisiana. Yeah, he banded 32,000 birds. You know, it's on par with Walkinshaw that we saw earlier. But the banding, again, tells you a little bit about the bird, the initial measurement. Then if you do get the bird back, well, you kind of know that it may have, or may be stopping over in a certain area, or it may be breeding in that area. So returns, repeats, good stuff. And it does give you a little bit of ancillary information on longevity. And it is interesting how long some of these birds live. I mean, these passerines are quite capable of living 15 years. Even hummingbirds get into the double digits. Oh, got to go back to that slide. So here's that Lisa Bittern, sharp chin. What's this one? Yep, Parula. Yeah, northern Parula. And then a prairie warbler. Boy, those things sure have declined in the state. I think we're getting close to the end here because I was saving the owls to last. So, don't have time for banding during the day, so why not? Why not band at night then? Don't have time for that either, so let's just see what happens. Nocturnal birds are great, and if you can sample them, whether you can do it orally, you know, through censuses, or if you can band them, well, there's a lot to be learned, especially since so many of them are declining really badly. Some of the boreal species due to potential climate change, not sure exactly what the mechanism there is, but certainly the lack of forage has really impacted the nightjars. So, short-eared owl, screech owl. All right, what's this one? This one's the nighthawk. And then this one, yeah, that's the whippoorwill. Those have really declined badly all across Michigan. They're still holding on in the UP, but man, I do a 25-mile route up there, and I used to get, well, 25 birds, pretty much a bird per mile. I'm lucky to get 5. So in 2005, Lena and myself started banding owls at Muskegon State Park with help from Rick and particularly help from Carolyn Wang. We didn't put a major effort into the project because we were so busy with so many other things, but it's like, well, on those days we are banding at the preserve. Let's see what owls we can capture. The focus really was on saw-whet owls, though we were, well, we'll take what we can get. So we got a few screech owls, a few barred owls. After 2011, I just dropped it. I just didn't have the time. It was ridiculous. However, Jason talked me into coming back. So this year, or last year, we hit it again. Again, speaking of ages, adult male, presumably, young female, and something, another the snowy owl. You really need to take a close look at the cover. This is probably a young male, but not sure on that. So yeah, that first season, it was just simply experimental. Jason and I got 6 owls in the spring. Then we decided to get serious, and we got more owls in that fall of 2021, than we had caught total at Muskegon State Park. And these are just saw-whet owls. We caught 1 in the spring. Again, we were busy. Got serious again in the fall, got 61 owls in the fall. And these are new birds. Now, we did recapture some of them. Of those birds that we captured, 5 came from other stations. So the males, again, another case of reverse dimorphism. The males are a little bit smaller than the females. Supposedly, the males don't migrate as far south, and they migrate later in the season. Well, we're still investigating that. But based on the sample that we have, which albeit is small, though their average date's the same. So red morph and gray morph, screech owls. And we have caught a couple, no, we caught 1 barred owl that we keep on capturing. That's a youngster. But yeah, we'll take them. I'm more interested in making sure that barred owl doesn't attack a screech owl in the net. He's tried, but we've been pretty lucky so far. And so, yeah, there's our real target. And not only are we going to try to break up the birds by sex, but by age is even more important. And most birds you can get down to 2 age classes, young birds and adult birds. Saw-whet owls, because they have an incomplete molt, you can age them more finely. And so you got the hatching year birds, second year birds, and then older birds. Often you can age them to 3 years, but you lose a lot of precision once you do that. And so there's a little bit of doubt regarding, these ASYs. Some of them are TYs, a few of them are probably ATYs. So half the birds we capture are young birds. So it's kind of interesting. So these 23 HY birds kind of translate to these 12 second-year birds. So if we can keep on banding, ideally get like 7 years in, we'll put together a pretty interesting life table on these things. The span of these birds is about that big. They're essentially the ecological equivalent of sharp-shinned hawks. They don't eat birds, but they migrate at about the same pace, same timing, same weather conditions, kind of driving them. And that's where they show up. So what we got here is incoming. Oh, the red. These are my more distant pasturing recoveries. I got 1 more that falls off the map. That's in Tennessee. It's kind of interesting. But the owls, because so many people are abandoning owls, and they really seem to be focused on leading lines, they don't migrate across Lake Michigan. It's the one bird that you can actually track a migration with bands. And we're definitely trading birds with both Whitefish Point and Point LaBarbe. Also, Cedar Grove Ornithological Station caught one of my birds. Caught it 3 days after I banded it. So, what do you think happened there? Do you think that bird went all the way around the lake in 3 days? I think he caught a ship. Yeah, I think he caught a ship. It's the only thing that makes sense. And a couple of these birds were birds that, this bird was killed by a cat, but these other birds were caught and released. The orange is incoming birds. The yellow, the green is birds that have left the station.
So each band has a unique identifier for the bird as well as for the bander?
Nope, not for the bander, just for the band itself. And because the bands are provided by the Fish and Wildlife Service, they have a registry of those bands. They knew who those are assigned to. So let's say one of the things I band out here are the purple martins, Dave's colony. And so we throw a bunch of bands on them. They're getting hit by cars, or they're flying into windows, or just starving, whatever. Somebody will pick up a band, they'll report it to the bird banding lab, And the bird banding lab, fairly instantaneously, online that is, will say, well, yeah, that bird was banded in Grand Haven on this and such date. I think they provide my contact information. And so, yeah, it's all in the public domain. Not all the data I collect is submitted to the bird banding lab, but the basic data is.
So if you find a bird in Ontario, you know it came from Michigan or vice versa.
Yeah,
Ontario.
no, but it has the band, and I'll just enter it. And the bird banding lab will say, yeah, that bird was banded in Ontario.
There's enough unique numbers for all the banders.
Yeah, despite what I was saying about how long these birds live, there's plenty of unique numbers. But don't forget, the bands are split by bird size. So a robin won't take the same size as a white-throated sparrow. But all the white-throated sparrows take the same size. Fortunately, there's not a whole lot of banders, though. But yeah, they do recycle numbers in time. After 50 years, passerines live for a long time, but after 50 years, you can recycle those numbers. But in fact, there's actually an omission on this bird. On this map, there is a bird that we caught this fall, and whoever banded it has not submitted their data to the Fish and Wildlife Service. So we don't know where it came from. Until they do, well, we have one more recovery that's not cataloged here. I think that's it. All right, that's it. Hope I wasn't too long.